Started because we have a little bit to do tonight, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to a regular session to order, and we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll just attend all the meetings I attend, we'll never forget.
Okay. First order of business is that we need to elect a chairperson. We have a motion to elect a chairperson for the 2021-22 budget.
I make a motion to elect Scott chairperson.
I make a motion.
I'll second that.
Oh, which one are you seconding?
Scott, I second Scott.
Okay. We
I
have,
know you gotta get in there quick or you're gonna end up there.
Thanks, Dan.
are you comfortable doing this since you've never done one before?
I've never done one, so I'm not sure what you're signing me up for. I think since Dan's been here, he should be the chairperson.
Dan, do we have a second for Dan?
So seconded. Dang it.
It's all good.
All right.
I had to do it for the hospital last year, so.
So
Okay.
good at it.
He's got experience.
All those in favor of Dan Henderson being the elected chairperson for the 2021-22 budget committee meetings? Well, I guess we need a motion. I need a motion. Can anyone do the motion?
Yeah. I move to elect Dan Henderson as the 2021 Budget Committee Chairperson. Does that work?
Okay, we have a second.
21, 22.
So seconded.
Okay, Leanne, got seconded. It's been moved and seconded to elect Dan Henderson as chairperson for the 2021-22 budget committee meetings. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations, Dan.
Now.
Now it's my turn, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Do I hand this to him?
Yeah, we'll have to that possibility there.
I move.
Does he need to be up here?
You guys do whatever you don't need it.
You got it.
He's
I
not.
got it.
But if you didn't get the other
I move to approve the meeting agenda items for the April 26, 2021 Budget Committee meeting number 1 as presented.
Second.
So we need some discussion. Ask for discussion.
And what's the discussion? Any discussion?
I would like to amend the motion by also adding that we would, with the possibility to approve the 21-22 budget.
Just in case we finish this evening completely entirely, we will then also approve it, and that motion's not on the agenda quite yet.
All right.
So it would read, I move to approve the meeting agenda items with the possibility to approve the 2021-22 budget for the April 26, 2021 budget committee.
Yes.
Make it so.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay. I move to approve the minutes of the June 15, 2020 budget meeting number 2 as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Been moved and seconded. Any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Quorum, do I need to read all of this?
No.
Okay. Everybody understand everything in number 5? There's a quorum present.
It says a quorum of 5 budget committee members must be present. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yep.
so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, so they're all kept, okay.
So, next thing, superintendent's budget
That's
message.
great, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, appreciate it, thank you all for serving. I'm not gonna insult you by reading everything, I'm just gonna hit the highlights. So this is a school budget, it's based on estimate of funding. And based on that, there's a lot of factors that hit us, and right now, we're looking to increase the state budget. Right now, the legislatures are at 9.1 billion. We need 9.6 to get everything running the same way. So in other words, what that means, roll-up costs, how much it costs to do business, we need another $500 million. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock, I'm testifying in front of the legislatures, so we're working on it to get it. I believe we'll hit at least 9.4, but we want 9.6. So that being stated, you'll see when we come through the estimate, when it finally does come through for the whole group, we will have things in place. That way we don't have to call the meeting back. We will say, this is what we're cutting here, and the board can make tweaks as we go. So any questions about that particular part? Okay, that being stated then, we have some issues where the district has to look at a lot of factors, and we have roofing, painting, older facilities, technology updates. One thing that's been positive about COVID is we have technology updated a lot more with our kids, one-on-one. So that's been the federal money, and Evan Reese and his crew's done a really good job with that. So we appreciate that. But we have put money in the budget, you'll see that in there throughout there, to make sure that we maintain it. We don't want to just have this brand new car and then not keep it taken care of. So we're going to take care of it. We're going to see us rotate every third year out so much so we can keep things fresh and up to date. So we're gonna work with that. One of the unknown variables for us is our PERS debt, and that is our personnel retirement account. So that account is one that hits us pretty hard. So we, like everybody in the state, we'll make our adjustment accordingly. The board has been very progressive. They want to look at bonding. If we bond it, that means our debt will be a lot cheaper. And that will happen after all this process. But I want to make sure you hear about it when you read about it 3 months from now. You're going to say, how come we never heard that in the budget committee? This is a public document. There's nothing here we hide. So if we do that, what we're doing is looking at a credit card debt of maybe 21%, and we're trying to refinance that down to 12%. And that will save us some money on our debt. And that's how it works. It's a simple way of looking at PERS bond. We're not going to be doing that until June or July, but we wanted to make sure you're aware of it. So that's one way we're looking at trying to address that. We also have a lot of maintenance issues, but right now we're really more concerned about keeping the prison open, because the prison leaves is going to impact us drastically with our average daily membership or our attendance, about 80 kids. So that's one of those things we're working with. We have a contract, a tentative agreement with our classified. We are also meeting with our teachers. 87% of our budget deals with staff. So we spend some money on it. That's where most of it goes. So the expenditure assumptions on page 2, you'll see some restraint trainings we have to do, things like that. But all those things are just things that this falls into the budget. On page 3, though, is the summary. We build the budget at 9.5, educational funding level, and then what we'll do is for every $100 million the state cuts us, so if it goes to 8.4, we have our first cut. Our first cut will be extracurricular activities. We'll have to pare it down and maybe do fundraisers. The next one would be an additional reduction of staff, that'd be KCC partnership and staff. The third one would be a reduction in fine arts programs. And then finally, at 9.1, all of the above, plus some additional supplies. So we're trying to keep, under the board's direction, we're trying to keep class sizes small. So we have not cut many staff here. Our FTE is flexible because some of our expensive employees are retiring, and we will be able to hire back cheaper, and that's how we're hoping to keep all of our staff in place. That's a priority from the board, it's given me, and that's what we're doing. So, because it makes a difference if you think about that for our kids, small class size. We've learned that with COVID. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that to you. Given the above assumptions, we're talking about a general fund expenditure about $11,707,000. A couple things we have cut. We have cut some support staff at the administrative district office. We'll be doing that next year. In addition, we have cut our legal services from $20,000 down to $5,000. And I talked to our attorney today. He understands that. Since I got a little more experience with the law part, I'm able to help do a lot of that and run it by our free attorneys. So I want to make sure I mention that to everybody. That's why you're going to wonder why. Doesn't mean that some of the liability is not there, just that we have other connections and other means to bring the cost down. So that's pretty much it. High cost student needs, we don't anticipate any more correction on that. We're about a 17% FTE, 17% of special education. The state pays us at 11%, so that 6% makes it hard for us. But Ms. Chavez and her team's working on making sure that we get a little more efficient with our special education department. So we have some consultants helping us with that. We are putting money into title, and that's the title programs, and bringing in some consultants for mathematics and language arts. So those are our functions, our plans next year. So that's the budget in a very compact way. Questions? You have some, and there's no poor questions. I want to make sure all the new budget members, there's nothing here. So ask a question. If we don't know the answer, put it down, we'll go forward and get it to you. But there's no poor questions. So are you ready? Let's go.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of speed through this, but interrupt me if you have a question, don't hesitate to holler at me. Most everything is kind of pretty much along the same lines, I'm just gonna hit on some high spots, that are drastic, or are a concern. I spend a little bit of time on the resources part, that's our money coming in the general fund, is where we're starting at. Excuse me. So our ESD dollars, flow-through dollars, that should stay the same. I left our tuition kids about the same. That is always a crapshoot, back and forth between MODOC, Plush, and Adele. It just depends on who moved in, who's moved out, and we go back and forth with MODOC. So we do a lot of back and forth with them.
So we write an agreement with MODOC, and if we have more kids, they pay us a check, or that's why we just guess.
Yeah. Moving on down, so we mentioned that we budgeted at a $9.5 billion. In that first year, we're at 49% of what we would get, 49% of that. The following year would be a 51% split, so 49-51. That has not been brought to light yet, so we are totally stabbing in the dark, hoping for a 9.5. So that's kind of where we're building from. Our ADM, we kind of kept that at a steady pace at this moment where we are this year, knowing that in 2022, we know that if the prison does go, we are going to lose approximately 80 kids.
And then you take that for just a simple math, just take about $9,000 times 80 kids, and that gives you the total. So it's a pretty substantial amount. The state will not hold us accountable for one more year after that, so that gives us a little cushion. So we're worried about saving money now. It really doesn't do a good job. Also, we don't want the governor to know that. We want the governor to hear that we need prison, and we can't afford our school to go down. So I want to make sure you heard that message loud and clear publicly. Go ahead.
So there is that, which would result in about $6,280,000 state school fund in the 21-22 school year. We do get some funds for common school fund, which is another source from the state. And moving on down, of course, our federal force fees. That is always you never know if you're going to get it. But I always bank on it because then that's my cushion if we do not receive property taxes or something along those lines, because they do a true up at the end of May and from the prior year. So our next month will be based off of 1920. It could mean that we owe money or they owe us money. And I never like to be in the position where we owe them, because usually that's a pretty good hardship for us to deal with, because it could be easily $300,000 if we did not get, say for instance, or if we got federal force fees and not budgeted for that.
So what they do is we pay property tax, which everyone's paying their taxes real high right now, then they will take that from our amount. If the timber comes in a different amount, then they will take that. So we call it a rebate. So what she does is she budgets in a conservative method to say that way we don't have to write a check at the end. We have a conservative money in the budget. So there's a simple way to put it up. I'm just trying to make it, because otherwise you get that educational ease.
Now, all year long, we've been looking at an ending fund balance of about $880,000. Mr. Carter and I have kind of a bet going to see where that actually is going to land out. I'm always the one that tells him the bad news, but I do believe we would be about $880,000. However, I did get word that we are getting federal force fees. They just haven't come all the way through, and that is approximately $300,000 that we will receive. So that bumped us up to 1.2.
And if that does that, that is awesome, because that gives us a good cash carryover.
Which is, we all know, that's where I like to be.
And Lake County School District number 7 gets 70% of the county's
Right.
cut.
Cut.
Because we have 70% of the kids.
Yeah, it's based
North
on,
Lake has the next biggest cut,
And
then Paisley,
And then plus,
and Flushing.
any questions on, our resources for the general fund?
I will say North Lake is growing like crazy.
yes.
Any questions, good to go, moving on?
Good to go.
Okay. So like I said, everything is pretty much stayed the same. Of course, we don't touch, salaries and benefits, just a quick reminder. If you do see FTE and it looks funky, I was telling Mr. Carter today, I said, this might be a red flag, but don't let it be a red flag because the overall FTE, it's all there. It's just we have it everywhere at this point.
So we're piecing these together with state funding. It comes back, they do like a Title IX, all the different title programs that we have. And then what happens is we try to true it up and say, okay, this person works 0.3 here. An example is we have a testing coordinator, it's like 0.5 here and then 0.2 somewhere else. So that's why it looks a little funky if you try to add those two up. All we care about and all you care about in the budget is to say we have 62.8 FTE.
At the end of the day.
In other words, we can pay our bills.
Okay, so moving into, you'll find there at the union, the only thing that I'm gonna kind of mention upon is the computer software, and that goes back, that stems back, you're gonna see this quite a bit, the hardware and the software, you're gonna see that quite a ways through, or all the way through this, keeping up with the one-on-one, the Chromebooks and the subscriptions that go with that, and the software updates that we, already have in place.
So our goal is that never again will we not have one-on-one for our kids.
That is probably your biggest change within the general, or within union, is there. The next page is, students with disabilities, that is 0 across the board. We kind of separated some things out from the resource room. They felt that they needed, Mrs. Warner needed to have that a little bit separated. So those monies are kind of in addition to, but it does go back to our special education, programs within the students with disabilities and resource room. The resource room stayed the same. So I'm not really gonna spend a lot of time on anything that, is relatively the same. Improvement of instruction is the same, which is, you'll see that throughout, each building, if you will. That's their, professional development. We may bring people in, we may send people out. And so that trauma-informed care might be one of those situations that we do. So we do it at the building level, and then we also have a district-wide. You'll see there's quite a bit substantial change down the road here of about 6,000, and that is a lot for the special education department across the board. So that covers all the buildings, and that's the main
When the
focus.
board hired me, they want me to bring in trauma-informed care that helps kids with mental, challenges. And right now, we have a lot of kids with mental challenges, people fighting depression, all kinds of things. So trauma-informed care helps our staff address those needs and also kids in poverty. So that's what it's about. So we started a little bit, but next year we're gonna have a consolidated.
So moving on, media services at Union is stayed the same. Staff development same, office of the principal stayed the same. Director of business, so this is our property insurance premiums out there. You will see a pretty good jump from the 7,700 that we budgeted last year versus the 9,100 that we're budgeting this year. We did not have a final increase as of yet. It won't happen, they won't give us that number until May, excuse me. So the maximum it could be is a 15% increase. And so that is going to be, it's gonna be huge for us. That's a pretty steep feat.
We're
to take.
anticipating that because of the fires in Oregon at school.
Along with, and then there's like cybersecurity.
There's cybersecurity and everything
There's a
else,
big
also
issue.
COVID insurance extra, and all that stuff we're doing. So that's why it's up a little bit. We also have been able to, our administrative team has gone through the training, so we get a 5% discount.
Yes.
So we're doing everything we can to make it work.
So again, just a big cushion there, just to make sure we don't lose out on anything. Moving on is your plan of operation, and really it stayed the same, except for, Mr. Carter kind of went through here and helped me out a little bit, and tried to get me with some more repair and maintenance and looks at that bigger picture for us. So the gym floor, it's costing us a little bit more, so that's thrown in there. Also our staff out there for cleaning, because we've increased that quite a bit too, so you'll see that is in a.
So we've added a couple maintenance and cleaning because of COVID requirements.
Yeah.
So we're also, if you haven't noticed, the ground's looking a lot better now. That's been part of it. We also have paint plan this year at Union and other places. And in addition, we're also trying to get, like, the floors have not been done properly, they've been water-based, and it's just not holding up for our kids, and it's not safe, so we're fixing all that. So we're putting a lot more money into maintenance.
Internal services, if you're printing, that stayed the same. And then our transfer of funds, this is a biggie. And I wanna touch on this for a minute. This is going to our Fund 240, so this is Union's portion of Fund 240. Fund 240 is cafeteria fund. Right at the moment, we are completely 100% free lunches. What has also happened is ever since March of last year, we have really slacked off on collecting, like private pays or those that don't qualify. So we've slacked off on that. So this summer, Mr. Carter and I discussed doing a little bit different to get that collected, like maybe doing an 80%, collection and writing part of it off, just so we can get the books cleaned up and get that.
So we're gonna use there's a research out there that talks about just saying, hey, people have a hard time, whenever you ability to pay, whatever you can do, and if it gets better, pay us back. And we need to know, so if they're not gonna pay us back, we can just write it off and get it off the books, because right now it's just chasing our tail.
Yes. And we haven't been very aggressive either,
Well, it's during COVID, so we're trying not to.
trying to be nice.
We're just glad to have kids here.
So that number is gonna be, that 147 is spread across 3 different schools, and so it's huge. It is really actually very huge, and it stems from coming from March of last year, rolling all the way forward to this year. Basically. Now we do get, and I can get into this when we hit that fund, that cafeteria fund, the free, we do get a little bit more, and as we go, I notice with the months I bill monthly, the increase of the kiddos are actually utilizing our cafeterias, which then also drives up our food purchase prices, but at the same time, we're feeding more kids, which
And
is
it's a
also
problem we
good.
wanna have.
Yeah.
It really is. The kids are hungry, we're gonna feed them.
Correct. Any questions on Union? Great. So the next page, you should see it says up there at the top, 80K in Fremont, 88 Fremont. So just a quick note on that tuition out of state, about halfway down. That is where we pay out for MODOC Joint. Usually they're going to State Line. The little guys are going to State Line, the ones that are in New Pine Creek, and that vicinity, they'll go there. We pay that out to MODOC. And so vice versa, they pay us as well on the other end of that when they come up here in the high school, middle school, high school. And there's some that are, little guys that come up here as well.
Are we still on the better end of that deal?
It's kind of this year.
This year it's a crapshoot.
Yeah,
I think we're losing.
we are out a little bit, yeah. Because usually it's 1 or 2 kids that we're paying out, and now it's several kids that we're paying. So it was kind of a shocker.
Yeah, that's the first, but it's our first time that I have seen looking back at the numbers in at least a decade.
Yes,
So
we've been offside.
we've been offside, so it's one of those, and I think COVID's a big part,
Yeah.
Travel, the bus.
So now 80K, this is on the whole, I don't have it down to the minute of each grade level and that sort of thing, so this is major big picture, for us there. A lot of the durable supplies is replacing with desks and chairs, addition to desks and chairs as we have been outdated for quite a while. The 23,000, in computer software, again, we're on that one-on-one, so we gotta upgrade, keep up with the upgrades and that sort of thing. So that is general instruction. Moving on to students with disability. They're wanting an additional sped room, one at Fremont, one at ADK. Currently it's on ADK side. So they have one on each building, so that's requiring more supplies, more consumables to fill that classroom. And then of course, kidney tables and extra tables for durable supplies. So you'll see a jump there. Resource room, this is one of those ones where we went from 1 FTE to a 4 FTE, so there's a huge jump there. We have increased our FTE as for special education down at the elementary level. So that's a major component to the resource room. English second language, there's not a lot of change there for you. Our guidance services, we've got the same, we've actually bumped her up to a full-time FTE rather than a 0.75. And so that relatively has stayed the same as well. Again, improvement in instruction, discussed that. Educational media services, your library stayed the same. And staff development. Office of the Principal, we do have an additional admin support. A teacher on special assignment, a TOSA, is going to go down and help Mrs. Warner in admin duties. So discipline and additional admin. So we can kind of have to take in account there. So there's a jump there.
And this has been a need. And Ms. Warner's got 3 buildings, and this will make it more efficient for everybody.
Otherwise,
Where's that at again?
at the
Which category?
I kind of just sit down here, sorry. Okay, so that is admin support there. Again, that plant in operation, that's our maintenance crew and our custodians. Again, Mr. Carter came in and beefed that up. Now this, at ADP in Fremont, it went down. However, there were some hires that I didn't know where to put them, so I put them as a district-wide, because I didn't know where they were. So they kind of stayed there, even though they float.
Yeah, so we're just taking, I'm consolidating district and I'm working with custodian, I'm putting everything in one place. So that way I get interchangeable parts. Because right now we've got about 4 different islands, we're trying to make them one.
Alright. Okay, internal services, those stay the same. Those are our printing, they go to the ESD, we pay the ESD. And then finally you get to your cafeteria fund, there's that 147 out of ADK Fremont, their portion to support that. Moving on into DMS, if you look down halfway there, we went travel out of district and that student travel. A lot of that went from 7,500 to 2,000. That's a major change. We trimmed down the Avid travel, and Mr. Carter, maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit better than I can.
So what we did on the Avid travel, we just brought people back, so we're gonna have train the trainer models. So we got a couple really good teachers who are involved with that. That way they can come back and save us a lot of money sending people there, and we're doing it online.
Up next is your resource room. That jumped a little bit, but again, let's see, we've got some textbooks that are needed in that vicinity there. Staff development, there's that again. Office of the Principal, that's just basically salaries, and we split that with the high school, so that's a split between DMS and LHS. Internal services stay the same, that's that printing situation. If we move right into LHS, again, halfway down, there's some travel in there. Those Avid trips is split 50-50 between DMS and LHS, and so again, those kind of got trimmed down with just exactly what Mr. Carter explained to you. The computer hardware, and we can see that at 0, but when we get to the tech budget, oh, it's a doozy.
There's a server and everything has to be up there.
So it increased quite a bit, and so that's why you're at 0 there. Now let's see here. So the last page is all of LHS. Now, it did go down. Now, keep in mind, I also, in the meantime, have moved teachers out for our SIA grant, which you'll see in a different fund. And then I also moved daycare out because it got too cumbersome in the general fund.
So the SIA is Student Investment Account, and that is the corporate tax you hear about. So this is set aside. Our community had a lot of meetings, and they have a plan for that. That's where we got our SRO and all that. Now, since the SRO is a grant, that will give us some more opportunities to work on security for the building.
That was a 2-year program.
Right.
So this should be year 2.
This is year 2. And last year, they only funded us at 34%, 37%. I forget, 34, 37. But this year, we're supposed to be funded 100. So that could be $728,000, give or take 5.
And they've given us an estimate, and it's not quite 700, it's about 580 something this
So
year.
there's the latest. It changes. That's why it's a bad estimate. They tell us how much we're gonna get and don't know. But right now, we budgeted what she put in there, so we're in good shape.
So then after year 2, no guarantees. Could be nothing.
No,
No,
it's a 4-year deal. So we got
Oh, it's a 4-year
We got 4 more years, or 3 more years after this.
So
Because remember, they put it on hold and they put it back in, so the taxes still got collected. So the money is there for the state, rainy day funds up and everything, so it should work. I'll
and
know
then,
more.
yeah, and they could come back at 700 next
And
year.
our forecast for the state will come out the 22nd of May. I'm also in Salem, so I'll be hearing some more stuff. I'm on that committee for the state money. So I think we're gonna be solid. That's all I can say about that. Go ahead.
Okay, so moving on, there's students with disabilities. We just didn't have anything budgeted there. It's the same situation as we had from 88 Fremont, so we realigned that to account at the high school as well. And then we also have the resource room, and that also stayed the same, which might I say that across the board, we've had, the 17% is a real deal.
And we're all working with the state to try to get that corrected. There's a couple bills out there. They're trying to make it 13% reimbursement. I don't think it's gonna happen. Probably still gonna keep it 11. They also require us though that if we spend this amount of money, it's called maintenance of effort, we have to keep it at that same level. And if we reduce it, we have to show why we reduced it. And you just can't reduce it because you don't want to. So that's what I mentioned.
Yeah, you get to pay it back.
You get to pay it back.
Super awesome deal.
So we're very cautious about this, so that's why maintenance of effort's in there, so we haven't touched it. And it's good for our kids. If our kids need it, we want it.
Correct. So next up, you have your alternative education, and that's kind of where your your orbit and your KCC, those kiddos that are taking those extra classes.
Former step up program.
Well, this one though is.
Oh, that's right, this is the other one.
Yes, this is the one where, they might be taking a dual credit KCC class, so we help them with books and tuition and that
Tuition.
sort of thing.
So we can get a double degrees.
And then we'll get to the alternative education now. English second language stayed the same, your guidance services stayed the same, improvement in instruction, that's again, those professional development stayed the same, the library stayed the same, staff development stayed the same, office of the principal, we kept that the same. I did increase ASB transit. That basically is an in and out. If they buy something and the district needs to pay for it up front, say with a credit card where we have the account there, we'll pay it, but the ASB account may be paying us back for that, or some sort of club account is paying us back for that. So it's pretty much a wash at the end of the day. And what I have found is that generally they're spending money out of there, and I like to keep everybody in kind of within their budget. And so if I have it too low, then I've got to release it, and then that I might forget. So
And we do that for protection, so when the checks and balances or auditors want, so that way we don't have ASB with a credit card.
yes.
We can track it that way.
So that's the office of the principal, otherwise the same there. Now, I do have, this is where I have a true mistake in here. I forgot to go back in and fix my FTE in the plant operation. I probably do have 9.5 custodians and maintenance
It's
people.
9.5.
But the dollars don't match up, and so I moved them around and I missed the FTE. So I have a note to go fix my FTE. But overall, I'm pretty sure there's 9.5 people here.
We have 9.5.
Um,
And again, that we have to do that, that's how we sold opening up, was to make sure we disinfect it. So even now, we have custodians going out disinfecting things throughout the school day.
Right.
So I'm okay with that. So I just want to make sure you know that why it's higher. And worst case scenario, everything gets back to normal, which is great, then we'll use those people to take care of other programs. Because like now we have the CTE program, so we can use an instructional assistant or one of our maintenance people can work under a teacher. So I have a building course I really want to get built up here next. I really want to have a construction class and then instruct some of our maintenance people who are really good at this. So we can do that.
Again, internal services, printing and binding, that stayed the same. And then again, here is PMS LHS's contribution to that cafeteria fund at $147,000. So at the district office, Mr. Carter mentioned the legal services. That's where we reduced it from 20 down to 5,000, and he already explained that. Dues and fees is kind of a reallocation. It looks like a big jump, but part of it was coming out of my budget, not properly coming out of where it should have in the board of directors.
So for administrators, we have to have the license with a confederation, a coalition. So we paid that there before it was taken to different places. Now it's just not getting, this is how much we're spending to keep people certified and insured. That makes sense?
And moving down is our executive admin. Pretty much everything stayed the same there except for consumable supplies. We did up that because we have found that we do need, more supplies are coming out of that pocket there. And otherwise everything else stayed the same there. The next is the director of business support. So this is kind of my realm. This is where I get a lot of everything. So iVisions is a big one that we've got for data processing services, and our computer software is in that realm. And then of course, liability insurance and property insurance premiums. You'll see we went from 72.5 to 84.2 is down at the bottom there. 33,000 on the liability to 37.3. Again, that's accounting for that 15% increase that we could potentially be seeing at the end of the day. Our fidelity bonds should stay the same. Those generally do. That just keeps us all bonded and out of trouble. In the fiscal services, you'll see where there's a little bit of reduction in the FTE, which Mr. Carter has already touched base on that. And then your next is your staff services. As you know, it's hard to get candidates in here, although principal candidates is up, which is pretty exciting. But we are looking to be more advertising and really get our word out there and make it desirable to be here. So we increased this a little bit with the general professional and technical services. So I think talent ed and those, where we can post them.
So Talent Ed's a program that we can use to post that gets people from around the country. It also allows us to do our evaluations, so it will be a standardized program for us. So when someone comes in and says, you're Talent Ed trained, I can be from another state and come in and be able to evaluate our staff using that Talent Ed. It also helps us whenever it's a standard uniform for the references, because right now they're all over the place.
Alright, so district-wide, there's a few changes here. If you look at that, there's nothing there for home instruction. This is our Lakeview Academy. This is our teacher that is in that situation there. And then your resource room, that also is encompassed in that Lakeview Academy also. So salaries is out of there, salaries, and then we've got some dues and fees in there to associate that. English second language. This is a stipend for our ESL person. And student service direction, so this is, again, that half a piece of special education. And you can see down through here, there's quite a bit of legal service with that, about 3,000. Special education is kind of a unique animal, and so we have a specific firm that helps us out with those legal situations. Otherwise, you're looking relatively the same there. Here's the 6,000 that I was talking about on that improvement of instruction, additional special education, training, trauma informed, and those situations is coming from there, so that hits us district-wide. The assessment and testing, this is where we have that testing coordinator, and we did reduce the consumables. We were supposed to be taking tests, now we're not taking tests. Have to buy the test, now we don't have to buy the test. I don't know, tomorrow we might be taking tests again, I'm not sure. Office of the principal, on the next page, this is Lakeview Academy, so this is your other split. And so we did that with district-wide because it truly is district-wide, all the kids that are in that academy.
That's our online program we have.
Okay. Unemployment, we did account for any potential layoff situation that we may have if we hit that 9.1, 9.2, even the 9.4. So we do, I went to 15,000 in hopes that we don't have to go there.
So if you wanna ask where we hide the money, that is where we're hiding the money. So, people always ask that, but seriously, this is what we're hedging the bet. We're hoping we don't have to use it, but if we don't put it in there, then we're gonna be in trouble.
But if you do have to use it, that's a Band-Aid.
It's a Band-Aid. It just gets you started.
Right, correct. There's your district-wide maintenance. Again, there's that one, and so again, that has also increased, so it's kind of all over the board. Otherwise, it's pretty much stayed the same. We looked at heating, fuel, and electricity, and the water and the sewer, and kind of gauged it off of what we're at this year, of course, with any rising costs that we might have had, and gauged it off of there.
You geothermal, what's the line item in here?
It's not,
No.
it's
Bill,
within our heating and fuel, or heating fuel, which is that, I upped that to 135,000.
it's about $8 grand a month.
And I don't know that the geothermal will go up, our bill of that, which is about 8,800. But, yeah, correct. But the propane, we still have some propane
2 propane levels.
that is still, and we've been through quite a
You
bit.
can give them this numbers. To help me out with the geothermal, I said 8, but it's really 9,000 a month.
Yeah. Okay, let's see, so then student transportation, this is, this one is kind of a crapshoot because we've gone places, but we haven't gone places this year. So I kind of try to keep it in line, like with the fuel and oil, and I may be off base on this on the fuel and oil because we haven't spent as much fuel and oil in this year, obviously. But I tried to go back to 18, 19, and then after I did that, I went, oh, but fuel prices are way different than 18, 19 at this point. So it's really gonna be a crapshoot, and we may be still in the same situation next year and have these shortened seasons. So we can.
So we built it based on the year before, and then the bottom line is, that's what we're hoping.
Yeah.
But
Again.
that's why we didn't reduce it, we wonder why. We didn't spend it, that's why we didn't reduce it. And that's one of the cash carryovers in the help our ending fund balance.
Yes, yes.
Just for the budget committee, it's 70% reimbursement. So that's why I've been part of Janet in there, she's been doing that, so that's why 70% of her salary is reimbursed for the transportation. Athletics is not. So if it's an extracurricular academic field trip, it is reimbursed at 70, but athletics is not, so we're going to screen that.
And we weren't putting Janet's salary in there before.
Not as much.
Not as much,
And now I put a lot in.
because it didn't make sense not to when you look at her job. And also, I've been able to take over some other things that she was doing. So I've been taking over maintenance and custodian. Janet had all that, so now she's not, and that gives her more time to do the transportation piece. Which Janet loves thoroughly. Go ahead.
I can tell. Way better deal. So again, that liability insurance for our buses and that, increased that by 15% down there at the bottom. So it looks, 501,000 to 487. Some of my staff is also younger. I've had a few retirees, so they've come in at a lower rate. So that's kind of where we make up those differences there in that.
We don't take the whole thing off because the problem is there's also a state formula. It gives you $25 per child if you're a certain level. So there's that point where you don't want to get rid of all your veterans because it can turn your formula. And right now we're right on that cusp.
Internal services stayed the same. That's our postage and printing on the whole for the district-wide. Staff health services, that's kind of our CPR training, first aid training, that continues to stay the same. Technology services, so here's the goodie right here. Our telephone cost we have increased that, because you've got Lakeview Academy, one, and then we've got some hotspots to accommodate those that cannot get maybe Wi-Fi or internet connection. You'll keep looking down, we've got computer software, there's some more upgrades there. And then the 110,000 computer hardware, that is a replacement of 150 of our older equipment, so 150 of the maybe possibly Chromebooks, for the general. About 110,000. What we estimate. Prices could change. So that one is a pretty large, substantial increase, but I think it's well worth documenting there, because we are gonna have to.
Considering putting $500,000 into new technology, it doesn't make sense not to.
Exactly. Okay, so. Short-term debt, that's just kind of a placeholder, we don't really have anything. So then we get to this last page, this is our district-wide transfer of funds. That very first one, I apologize, sometimes this thing prints it, it's not, I don't know if I just get it in the wrong place. But really quick, we'll see this on the other end, as we get through those funds. Again, daycare, that's that first line item of about $63,000 of the general fund that will have to help support that. When I go through that, here in just a moment, you'll see where there's other funding streams coming to that daycare, not just from the general fund. So that's estimated there. Transfer to 276 is our youth summer employment, which is, we got to bring that back this year, which is kind of exciting. And so we will have to support that through our general fund. And then 410, we've got another bus purchase coming that we have to get done. And so that's in there. 299 is a biggie. It's jumped significantly this year to 237,000. And then 450, 37,000 roughly there. That's where union painting and the remodel of the teacherage is in that bucket there. Then we have the 601 tuition reimbursement. That's where we help keep them certified and help them with some school. So there's in the CPA, we've agreed to supply that with $6,000 per year.
So we're trying to get teachers IAs and go back, get their license and everything like that, and then we're asking them to sign an agreement. So if you pay for part of your school, you'll stay another year.
And then moving down, the 15,000 goes to the wellness fund, and so that's wellness for our staff. And then the last one is the required tuition. So if we hire a teacher that maybe doesn't have a certain credential and we're requiring them to teach that specific subject, then we will also help at a certain percentage to help with their schooling.
So Tamlin's, we're good on this. She works with the standards for licensure for teachers, and I might come in and I need to endorse, I need to teach a yearbook or something, and she will let them go to school and we'll pay for it to keep the investments.
Janet,
Yeah,
I just was really quickly wondering, how many more buses do we need to change over?
Never ever been problem 3 at least.
bingo.
3.
Well, she's been working on this for many years, so I'm just curious where we're at.
The way I look at it is
The idea though is to only do one at a time.
Correct.
Oh yeah, they're spending. She's been saving for a while, but I was just curious how many on the fleet are left.
So the problem with it is by 2025, I have an emissions problem, Annie, and
It's a
so
10-year thing. So.
yeah, and so
Right.
we're about there. And what I have found is the DEQ wants them off the road just as bad as anybody else, and so they offer money, so I take it.
So the answer to your question is 3, and depreciation for buses 8 to 10 years. And with the emission piece, that sped it up 2 years.
Okay, I wanna say we had about 6 when I started, so we're chugging along.
Yeah.
It's great.
Don't say chugging, we want to remember
Sorry.
So when you're sitting on the bus and you're going uphill, it's only going 35 miles an hour, we can cuss the DEQ.
Don't call me.
He said, there is no turbo.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so, that's the long and short on my transfers, we'll see that down the road here in just a minute. Our planned reserve, I've got it, I whittled it down to 259,000, and then, unappropriated reserve for next year is 500,000. You all know I like to be in a million, but Mr. Carter said let go, so I let go a little bit.
I have to remind everyone that we're not a business and we spend money for kids. So as long as it benefits kids, that's where we're at. But I also understand the conservative nature of the community I serve. So I will make sure we keep a balance and keep Janet at least semi-sane.
It's hard to do, let's just face it. So that brings us to the end of the general fund at 11,707,719. Is there any questions on the general fund?
Okay, before she gets into this next group, let me just tell you, not much here, she's gonna just hit the highlights, because what happens with these grant funds, it's very targeted. They say, you have to do this, and you have to do it this way. So you're gonna say, how come we can't take this money and put it here? I can't. So you'll see the title thing. So like the title revision, I had to take it over this year, and I don't know, was it 19 or 20 revisions we made? Seriously. And they sent it off, we did it back. So I just want to mention, when you get these grant funds, there's really no rhyme or reason. They're gonna say, this is how much money it is, it's based on this, and that's it. So she'll be flying through this very quickly, so I just wanted to hit that before we went. Go ahead.
Yes, and a lot of it is salaries, so it is what it is,
That's where we're gonna talk about daycare first.
yes. So the daycare, I had a little football there, all zeros, it's great, 304,000. But the breakout on that, and I wanted to hit this because this is new. So the services provided, at the beginning of the next school year, we will charge per kid, per day. And so that will be across the board for our staff, it will be a benefit to them. Outside of here would be a charge.
And I met with Charlie today, and we're meeting next Monday, so he's gonna give a survey out to his staff at the hospital. That's the #1 client for us, and then we're gonna do it that way. There's also gonna be some daycare funds that we have not seen yet, so we know it's there, so that's why we put this in there.
Yes.
But the board has worked with the town, and we appreciate that community effort, and it's needed. Right now, it's on the way needed. And then I was able to work with the commissioners, and they were able to help me get a grant, so we put in for a pretty good grant to help pay for some of this. So that's why it's a cumulus nebulae. We know it's there. It's like that pink moon coming up here in a couple hours. We know it's coming, but we just don't know how big it is.
So I roughly figured this at services provided at 39,000, that would be the charge. We could get a restricted grant at 118,000, and then there's the transfer of 63,000. And then there's some summer education money that's coming down. I did not include that in the general fund because that one is a moving target. However, they did tell us about 80,000 would be for daycare. So that one I kind of went ahead and pushed that.
We knew that's coming, but the rest are still out there. So we'll put all this together. It's about 9 different pieces that come together and put it together. And then our goal will be, if we're able to open it and go from there, we are going to open it. We get it there, then what will happen is any tuition comes back, we'll put that in the fund. The board will set it aside, so that way we can keep it going whenever that extra revenue doesn't come in.
Question, what is maximum capacity for that facility?
Well, we'll get our engineer in there tomorrow. Tomorrow they're doing engineering. We think it's 48.
48 students.
Great question, yes, sir. Based on what the square footage is from other programs, and looking at it, what we can do, we think it's 48. We're building at 45, but 48 is what we think.
So moving on, what I've included in here is we've already done the purchase, the half of the purchase in the prior year. The other half of the purchase will be in this upcoming year, and I've got that in a totally different fund to follow the purchase. However, we do have, you just mentioned, our engineer going in for ADA purposes. So part of those funds, that we could be getting on the restricted grants includes engineer services and ADA compliance. And so those are the changes that we would be making in there on that. Otherwise, the rest of it is supplies to for them to have activities and that sort of thing, plus our staff to staff it. Any questions on the daycare? Big deal. Okay, cafeteria fund. So again, I've already hit on this, and basically we have not been aggressive about collecting since March. And we'll put that program out this summer and try to get something collected. I didn't write that in just because it's a crapshoot.
Legal like
We will be at a negative fund balance. However, I did want to notice that, as I said before, that National School Lunch Program, we budgeted at $192,000, and I'm looking at maybe $305,000. So it's worth our while to be completely free, and I don't think that this year has been, like I said, every month, a little bit more participation from students. So next year it really could potentially catch on. I just hope we have enough room to accommodate. Our USDA commodities, that's an in and an out. You'll see it on the resource side, but you'll also see it at expenditure. USDA, we can order through them. They allot us so much, it's roughly $25,000 this year. We will spend it. We will order from USDA. We will also order from fresh fruits and vegetables. And then I also have been working on a grant, and this grant is not in this farm to food situation, which Klamath has been really helpful in supply or giving us information and giving us resources to go over there, bring things here. So those are also more fresh fruits and vegetables, but this will be also a separate grant to help accommodate the farm to food.
Somewhat local.
Yes, and it's somewhat local, and they're looking into Lakeview side. Not that we don't get spuds or anything like that over here grown, but the beef industry, they might be able to do something with the beef industry because they have a couple of beef suppliers over there, which is kind of a cool deal. Yeah. So those are the highlights on the cafeteria fund. It's a grim looking process this year, but I think a lot of it has to do with our collection, essentially. Healthy Schools Grant, this is one of those grants that they give us money, 12-5, and we split it up. It can be anything to help sustain healthy lifestyle. So it could be PE supplies, it could be, we bought an oven for one of the kitchens last year, and so it's a pretty wide variety. This year we pulled part of the school nurse out of there, and we haven't spent it all yet this year, but have intentions of getting that rest of that
And I'm presenting Friday with this group, so we're gonna ask for more money. Okay.
Moving on, this is where the SIA grant came in.
578, so I got it in my head now.
Will Healthy Schools Grant also include like outdoor play equipment?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
That's
Maybe it's daycare.
That's what I'm doing. I mean, not that I'm working on Friday, that's what I'm going after.
So then up next is your SIA grant, and I apologize, it's 578 is what the latest that they have thrown out to us. And so we've got some salaries in there. We opened that up in the high school program, which is also what Mr. Carter brought into effect about the construction and that program coming in.
That's our goal, we want to start construction, that's why I'm.
And then we also have some site improvements that we got about 88,000, and those are front entrances for security. Hazardous material, this is that seismic grant. We received it this year, but it will not be spent until next year. So that's a $25,000 engineering assessment for a seismic on this building.
And then we're hoping that start next year.
Ag farm, nothing much has changed here. She does get some hay and pasture income, that increased a little bit, as they have the pivot on there. And so basically, nothing else has changed other than a little bit more income for them. Horticulture, same deal, you've got your. Yeah,
I was told this week that they are gonna be,
no,
Here,
can't
You
hear you.
muted yourself again, Lane.
here we go, try again. Got some information on the ag farm that I need to probably share with you tomorrow on the wheel line side, and probably not much of a crop.
So not much water,
Correct.
all right, that's it.
okay.
Okay.
Alright, we can talk.
Yeah.
So moving on into the horticulture fund, this is Danae's plant sale that she does every year. Basically the same scenario. She's got an extra greenhouse, so hopefully she has a little bit more room that she can expand her resources there. Going into Measure 98 now, last year we budgeted for $148,000, that wasn't the case. It was more so $217,000. I stayed with that number because according to what we've been getting is it will be the same there. So we did a lot of, we've got a transfer into 278, which is our dropout for alt ed, or our alternative education program, which services dropout prevention, better suited. And so that, you'll see that down the line. That's one of those things for those, and then also your CTE, which is $125,000, we allocated up there for all CTE program. We still have a BLM native development. Danae's been working feverishly on this for the last 3 years. We got it whittled down to about $26,000. She bought the extra greenhouse with that. She's currently looking for another greenhouse because she thinks she can get it bought and utilized for the extra $26,000. She's also working with BLM to grow some native grasses within that. So it's kind of a trade-off. Alternative education, that's that Fund 278. We still have a little KCC FTE revenue coming in. It's not as high as it used to be, but it is still there. I've estimated it at about 10,000. We are a year behind collecting that, so this 10,000 is actually going to be for the 2021 school year FTE count, according to KCC.
KCC.
And then you'll see that transfer of 91,000. That's included in there. Computer software, that's pretty standard in there. And nothing really changed there other than that. The summer youth program, I've got a couple of, this is the combination of BLM and Forest Service. We'll utilize partial of that. And OICC, we could potentially have a grant from them as well to help fund this. Basically, we'll have students go out. We've already got two crew leaders, and they've each hired for a piece. So we've got 8 kiddos that are hired and ready to roll on June 14th. So that's kind of new because we didn't have that last year. With COVID, they shut us down fairly quickly on that. We will have general fund support on that for about 18,000. So IDEA grant, not gonna go into this other than your revenue. Roughly, this is a crapshoot also for 228,000, and this is also for salaries for our special education department. Your next one is Title 1A. That's the deal that Ms. Carter was talking about before. That again is also salaries and benefits. Your rural and low income grants. This is also another form of title, and this varies. It's a federal source. Mostly we try to upgrade our computer hardware out of this as well by new computers for the title department, along with some supplies that manipulatives classroom. Title 3, this stayed about the same, about 5,300, and really this is pretty limited, so just consumables, and there's not a lot there. 298 is your wellness fund. Again, that's staff wellness. They received a grant in this school year. They will have it spent by June 30th. They're pretty excited about that, so it's not included in there.
It's $4,900.
Yes, it is $4,900, and they are buying canoes and equipment, with that. They'll still have a beginning fund balance of about 28,000. Interfund transfer, a while back, our board has kind of, always put forth 15,000, and would like to see it sustained in that, so we do a lot of challenges and that sort of thing through there and supply water. And then of course our wellness room has equipment that is eligible for all of the staff to use. Let's see, athletic fund, so here's one that we might wanna spend a minute on for just a second here. This has been kind of a crazy year, let's just be honest. The athletic meet receipts is down significantly, and that is because we did not fully charge the full $100 for pay to play. Being that the season was so short that we reduced it, I believe, Chris Rose, is it $60?
Correct, that's correct. Because most of the seasons were about 2/3 of what a normal season would be, give or take, depending on the number of games. So we made it about 65%.
And so with that, we've got no concessions, obviously, and so there's no income coming from there, and really no tournament fees coming in, and so I kept it pretty conservative and said we probably are gonna be pretty tight next year for this. That henceforth is that $237,000 transfer, and how that came about. Now, the Booster Club has been very good about helping out, help support that athletic fund. They have dollars down at the ASB, and so we've worked together to kind of come pull out of that pot, pull out of the district pot, and kind of make it even out of that, and get those dollars spent. Some of the softball, baseball, those types of sports, they have a pretty good sizable balance down there, and they probably shouldn't spend it given that the Booster Club has generously donated.
Pretty much, we're just estimating, guessing on this one.
Yeah.
We really don't have an idea, but we're just letting you know it's gonna be a big part.
Are they talking possible full athletic years next year?
We're hoping, yeah. We just got the things today that we're gonna have, the sports, not winter sports are going full contact, so that's good.
Means we'll have a basketball season.
Pardon?
It means we'll have a basketball
We
season.
have basketball wrestling season. Thanks
That would be
for
good.
spoke language. So, any questions about that athletic fund? Best guess, go ahead.
Okay, so then we have the bond support fund. Now remember, this is not the first bonding, this is the bond,
For the facilities.
for the facilities. We're still contracted, with Cooperative Strategies, and we have 7,500 into them. The rest of that contract is 7,500. We're kind of at a standstill, obviously, but wanted to keep it in the forefront. Equipment reserve, already touched on that. Buying a bus, for the most part out there, the DEQ grant is roughly 50,000. That's in there, and then of course my school bus depreciation is also in there, about 45,000 for the next year. Then we have some depreciable replacement of equipment and basically the bus. That's the majority of it. Your maintenance reserve fund, we did up the rental. The Chief Rich is having that remodeled, and so that rental income increased I'm guessing to about a $7,000 increase to there. There will be some interfund transfer there. And on tap for maintenance reserve is painting median, future remodel, and then of course our second half of the purchase of the Southern Center of about 58,000. Lots of things happening. DMS main floor, we have $3,900 that is specific to the main floor of DMS, and so those funds will go in some capacity to there.
And they gave us the credits for
Yeah, basically. Senate, 499 and Senate 1149 bills, that is, we get some income from Pacific Power, that is for our lights. And we've been, Mr. Carter's been really good about working with getting new lights put in most of the buildings. We're getting there. We spent out of here this last year about $110,000 that they gave me the okay to pay us back. And so that will come out of here, but we still get those monthly checks, and it's roughly 1,500-ish every month, so it helps. Benefit accumulation, the Fund 600, is a simple in and out. We have retirees, so that's an in and out, and 10-month employees that pay extra, so they have insurance all year. In and out, we're paying OABB on that. The tuition reimbursement, this is where we're helping that staff out. With that obligated $6,000 accounted for. And basically improvement of instruction, so it goes to help get them through school if that's what they need in addition to. 602 is that required tuition, and so there is there's not a specific transfer that needs to take place there, but we had some use it this year, so I had to up that a little bit for about a $14,000 increase. Again, those are those required situations. The educational fund, so you'll see we've upped that a little bit. We've got $30,000 sitting in there. That's fire money. Since we let them use our building, they paid us. So nice.
And our goal's been putting out the new form
Yeah.
for kids.
And I think you had talked about like a scholarship type situation in different buildings throughout at the board's
So
discretion.
next year, what we're looking at is looking at $1,000 scholarships that staff member or program can put into the board, and the board can approve those. So it'd be nice for the board to have an input to help out. So the teacher says, hey, I wanna try that reading program here in 3rd grade, we don't have the money in the budget, they go to the board with a 1-pager, the board says, yeah, do it. Gives the board some hands-on stuff they don't get a chance to do.
And then the last one is the 701, and yes, that has increased beginning fund balance. I have some restitution that kind of hits my bank account every once in a while, and so we stick it in there and save it for a rainy day. So we're looking at not much of a change, but a $14 million budget, $14.9 million budget across the board. Any questions?
Previous year, we were,
Previous year, the whole thing was 14.6. And we haven't increased a lot. The 9.5, it goes back to that state school fund.
Goes back to
That 9.5, even though that looks like a big dollar figure at 6 million, it's really not, because at the end of the day, we also lose our ADM. And so we try to be pretty conservative in the fact that
we just looked at our ADM, see what's gonna be the adjustment, this is what we think it's gonna be.
it helps.
I mean, it really is, it's just an estimate, trying to figure out what's the best guess. If these people go out, we've lost about 60 kids since COVID. Even with our ADM, even with our academy. Some people have just gone to different places or moved.
do we have a rule with our academy that they have to be in District 7?
That's one of the things that we just came up with, we're questioning that. If we want to start a charter school, that would be one of the things I'm gonna ask the board at the next meeting.
They could be outside of it.
Yeah, we do our own charter, we can do that. We have to do a charter. So one of the questions I'm asking at the conference is, there's a section on charter schools, I'm gonna learn everything I can about how do we do that in small districts. So I started a charter school in my last district, but we started 17 years ago. So there's a lot of rules have changed. But like Crane has a huge charter school, Baker has a huge charter school, Paisley runs one. So we're looking at that, and that might be a way to get 8 or 9 kids in here. I'm sure the board might say yes, but I haven't asked.
It's a fee.
I have to be careful. I push everybody a little bit too fast. So is it working for everybody? Process okay? Get enough information? Go ahead.
No, good.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, we work real well together. We challenge each other immensely. I love the budget. I teach school finance, so I'm one of those weirdos. And Janet is the real weirdo. She really goes down deep with. Because what I mean by that is she really, which I need to have, she is the nuts and bolts. She's the one that comes back and says, no, it's 272,000. And I just, in my head, said 300 grand. So just helps.
Yeah, he likes to go high. I'm like, no.
She
need
keeps
to
us
Go conservative.
we make a very good team, and again, I have pushed the board, I apologize to the board, publicly, about spending money for some of our kids, but the programs that we're looking at are things that we really show that we need. The daycare is a big one, and we appreciate the town and, you know, the mayor and everybody, because that's huge. And I think once this is done in a year from now, we're gonna feel really happy about it.
Any other
Any
questions
questions?
or comments or concerns or?
Not, Mr. Chairman, you might get this thing passed tonight, unless you wanna work next time.
No.
I can't believe we didn't have to talk about pencils for.
We can do that if you like.
The first year I was here, this seemed like it took
I was like-
6 months, I know.
Well, the issue is we just try to.
I'm getting her whipped out.
Like I said, we make a really good team. The nice thing about it is we have a very good checks and balance. Our audit came back solid. You know, there's things we can improve on, and we will, but it's gonna take some time.
I think the presentation was fantastic. You did very good.
Yeah.
That's always good job.
Thank you.
And I appreciate that we're gonna get the Union School game.
I figured that would be a good
It's gonna be a good one, and I'm excited about that. We're also getting our staff trained to work with that, so it's gonna be good. And I think a lot of the stuff we're able to do right now, we're gonna see a long-term investment in getting people working, and then we don't have to pay to have contractors. Our people can do it, and that would be cheaper in the long run.
Anybody got a motion?
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Well, we
We
need
don't-
to.
Oh, we're down to it. Yeah.
That reminded me, yeah.
An hour and 20 minutes? Like, this is record, Janet.
I'm trying,
Okay,
I'm trying.
we're not done. I move to approve the budget for the 2021-22 fiscal year
As presented?
as presented. Thank you.
Do we hear a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Nice job.
We've got a budget.
Thank you all very much.
Yes.
Now, do you want to make another motion, Annie?
Yeah. Your
I
motion.
move that we eat dinner. That we adjourn the meeting.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Let's get out of here.